Tuesday, October 7th, 2025. And this is a farewell to Ukraine. You know, we're going to America tomorrow, and I'm not sure if we're going for 4 months, 2 years. I mean, it would be at least 4 months. We were planning maybe up to 4 to 6 months. We bought one-way tickets because we weren't sure on the way when we're coming back. It depends how things go over there. And we might be gone up to 2 years. You know, and maybe longer. Depends what happens here. Nobody knows. You know, that's the problem, living in uncertainty. That's the big downside here. This place was perfect before the war. You know, I saw myself living out my years here and, you know, doing all the family life and everything here. You know, as I've told you in previous videos, cost of living is good here if you got a nice remote US job or even European job. And heck, in IT, even the local jobs often pay enough if you work for a local company. I've experienced all of that, you know, and so it's like, yeah, real mixed feelings. I have a lot of friends here, feel pretty bad, even somewhat guilty having to leave them behind. But there's a few reasons we're going to the US. You know, first is, you know, my daughter needs to see her grandparents. My parents aren't really up for the trip here. I tried talking them into it, telling them it's safe and everything. Safer than being in the US, I feel. You know, all the... I mean, here at least you get an air alarm, you know, when the Russians are throwing rockets at you. And there was an attack over the weekend. It was pretty brutal. I mean, it kept us up 3 hours. You know, and we could see all the, we could hear the Shaheds, and we could hear the anti-aircraft fire, even saw some tracers in the sky, saw some interceptions just like before. So it was fairly close, you know, to us. You know, it was, yeah, it's just something you got to deal with here. You know, but I have faith in the Ukrainian forces that they can take down those drones and everything. And, you know, as I discussed so many times, you got this random violence risk in America. You know, you got to rely on the car more, so there's more risk there. Everything is roads, congestion, you know, stress. You know, so I'll be working in the US. My current contract ended, taking a few months off to renovate my mom's place. And then I'll get back to work, you know, hopefully get a remote job, you know, really remote, you know, and get back here to Ukraine, you know, but it depends. I mean, a lot of the remote work is drying up, and there's some really good jobs if you go to the office. And I just need to work like 2 or 3 more years to be completely independent. You know, it really depends on how if this AI boom is the real deal, yeah, then I'm on the right track. But if this is some bubble and it blows up, yeah, I'm going to be handing out carts at Walmart. You know, I'm all in on the AI. I mean, I have some backup in gold and, you know, some conservative shares like Berkshire Hathaway, you know, like, which is basically like holding cash right now. I don't know. It seems to move like in a step function. You know, it'll move all at once and then it just sleeps for a few years. And then suddenly it'll surge and then sleep. But Warren Buffett is stepping down this year, and then Scott Abel will take over. So maybe they'll do things differently. They'll invest more in tech. I mean, they're looking for all these steady industries, you know, like railroads and power companies, oil extraction, something that requires a lot of capital. But, you know, tech now requires a lot of capital, you know, buy all these GPUs and buy all these chips. But then again, Buffett is like adverse to like technology shifts. You know, I mean, we're still, as great as semiconductors are, you got to recognize the fact we're doing something wrong. I mean, the whole human brain, you know, which is smarter than any AI in terms of like thought and reasoning. You know, now we don't store and have the memory like a computer, you know, you know, we have shards of memories. But runs on 20 watts. Yeah, the human brain runs on 20 watts. But anyway, yeah, back to this, how I feel about leaving Ukraine. Yeah, I hope we come back. You know, I'm hoping that we can get our work done in the U.S. and come back. I really, I don't want to move to the U.S. until maybe my daughter is even 12. I mean, we can get a lot of the schooling done here. You know, there's some pretty good private schools here, and you know, maybe I can influence them to go with uniforms. And you know, a lot of them don't even have the phones. My daughter's daycare center is all digital free, no devices or no screens, so it's catching on here. So if I can find that here, we'll stay here, because like the environment is all around better here. You know, I mean, yes, it's like America. There's some hazards to some random issues. I don't walk too far down the tracks. Last time we got chased by a train. I think they're running around now. So yeah, it just depends. I mean, you know, we have to be really careful we don't get stuck in America. You know, you get a job, then you buy a house. You can't get the house rented. You get yourself stuck with some other things. You know, like right now, you know, the car, you know, just the routine. It's really easy to get stuck in America. It's not a bad place. It's just for my situation, for our family situation, Ukraine is a better place. You know, there's just a lot less stuff you have to worry about here. You know, like you take out, like I said, the automobile, it's just one more layer, and then, you know, it's, I don't know how else to describe it. You just have to come here and live. Maybe that's a business idea to help Americans find their way here. I mean, there's some girl YouTuber, you know, the childless cat lady in Lviv, you know, YouTuber or something, you know, offering guide services and stuff. But maybe if you're like an adult, you know, or something, and need some real adult advice, you come to me or something. But I don't know, I'm not too good at this stuff either. You know, I just, as far as turning it into a business, I just like talking to people. So like I said, if you're here and I'm here, I'm glad to meet you and, you know, have a lunch with you and just tell you everything without charging you money. You know, because like I feel like for me it's just natural. I don't know, but I guess for other people it's like a really big deal to come to a place like Ukraine and get settled in and adjust yourself to where they don't speak any English. You know, yeah. I mean, it just I guess it just depends on your personality. If you were in America in a corporation and, you know, lived inside the same community and, you know, never were in the military, I think military service is like a prerequisite. I mean, I know some Americans who are living here who've never done military service, but I think the military gives you like this flexibility and, you know, adaptability and ability to adjust to adversity, probably better than normal civilians, you know, and gives you a better risk analysis type of thing. But yeah, so yeah, those are just some of the things to think about. Now, as far as America goes, we got the health insurance done. So we got Blue Cross Blue Shield. It was surprisingly inexpensive, $600 a month for the whole family, you know, $30 copay. You know, I guess the maximum worst case scenario is $18,000 we would be out. They have some deductibles for emergency room and all that, but they didn't seem like they would ruin our life. I mean, I think they were in the thousands of dollars, you know, which, you know, if you're my age and you don't have that kind of money saved up, you really did something wrong. You know, so yeah. So the health insurance wasn't too bad. We bought short-term health insurance from United Healthcare. You know, this company, a little bit scandalous company, but they're big and supposedly they have good short-term policies to get us till November 1st. Because you got to wait like, I guess you got to wait a while before your policy starts, you know, in the U.S. It's a different system. And then my wife has to get her social security number and get her entry stamp and all this kind of thing. So we just have an interim policy between now and then, you know, for the family, you know, just to hold us over 20 days. And that is something in America, you should always be insured. You know, you got to just do it. I mean, we don't pay such high taxes there. You get all kinds of tax breaks and cookies and all this kind of thing. You know, a lot of opportunities to side hustle, but The insurance is just a tax paid to a private corporation. So instead of the government collecting that money, some corporation is collecting that money. That's fine. I mean, it all works out the same. Probably better in America. I mean, this health insurance thing kind of blew me away. I mean, the argument that everyone had in Belgium was that, oh, your health care is a disaster in America. But we found in Belgium, I was paying a lot of taxes. I was having to buy this Partena and all this other crazy stuff. And then, like I said, we found a decent doctor, like for general practice. But, when we had an ER thing, we were sitting there for like 3 hours, and then we ended up just leaving because, I guess the baby was really okay in the end. It just all worked itself out, thank God, So yeah, the health insurance is sorted, and I've got a few lines on some cars. I don't want to spend any more than $15,000 because I'm probably going to just have to buy it and dump the car anyway at the end of 6 months. But that's cheaper than renting from Enterprise. I mean, they want for like a little Chevy Spark, or like the old days Chevy Chevette equivalent, like just some little little car, like compact car. They want like $1,500 a month or something for the long-term car rental. Now, I think there's a business opportunity in America to do like car rentals from 1 to 12 months. If you can do it and make it affordable for the person and not make it too much more than a car payment and have the insurance bundled in and everything, I think there'd be a lot of takers. Just to have like I said, the car thing is a bit, yeah. But there are a lot of options. I mean, there's old Toyota Camrys are good. Old Subarus, if they've been repaired and taken care of, they're good. So, yeah, that's got to figure that out. And then getting the phone. So here in Ukraine, phone is like $7.50 a month. And I'm going to have to get T-Mobile in America because all these like little phone cards like Mint and Mobile USA and stuff, they're all just piggybacking off of the main networks. And so you might have breakages and, service interruptions or, whatever, slow internet. I don't know. I guess there's like a whole business of like, making these cards in America, just like those calling cards when we were in college, and sometimes they would work depending on the time of day they would call, or they only work at 2 a.m, because they're bought up all the minutes and then they mark them up and give them to you. Type of thing. I don't know. There's like a whole market. It's screwy over there. It's expensive. Internet's quite expensive there also. So those are some bigger expenses we'll have to take on. I mean, like internet here is like $8 a month. My phone prepaid is like $8 a month. And now all that stuff is going to 10x in the US. So, yeah, it's not so bad. Really, I mean, if you look at it in percentage terms, it sounds horrible, but in dollar terms, $160 a month isn't going to ruin my life. But it's just like a leakage, It's like a lot of small leakages there. You got like a lot of little bills to pay, And here, like I say, this is a good place to come, even with the war. If you have an adventurous soul and you're adaptable and pragmatic. You have to have a really pragmatic view about things and really be knowledgeable of statistics. There's a lot of, I can't say that there's opportunity here because everyone's waiting for the war to quote unquote end. I don't see the war ending the way people would want anytime soon. I think like, Europe and America and all these countries are, at least in Europe, they're, Rheinmetall and all this are building the factories and they're gearing up for a long war. I mean, when you're building factories, like I said, in a previous video, that's like a 10-year endeavor. So, yeah, they're shifting the whole economy for this. And it might take 10 years to grind this thing to a halt to where it just freezes in an unofficial way. I don't think there's going to be an official signature or anything. I think it's just going to freeze up somewhere. That's the way it's looking. It doesn't seem like Russia is interested in any kind of long-term treaty, and they see their investment in this war as grinding down the European economy and creating divides in Europe. That some people like, Angela Merkel said, oh, this is not our problem. This is a Baltic and Polish problem. So it's already happening. So that's like Russia's angle on this and why they'll keep investing. And the West will obviously keep investing because this is their opportunity to keep Russia occupied, here and grind them down, and, eventually break that country up. That would be the goal. And then you have a bunch of republics and you can, do business with them for rare earths or lumber or something. So, I mean, there is a long-term win for the West as well. And it seems like Europe has created a perpetual machine. A lot of countries buy more oil and gas from Russia than they give to Ukraine. So they're giving Ukraine $4 billion and they're buying $5 billion from Russia. And so it looks like a infinity machine or something. But a lot of wars go on like this. They go on and on and on and on. But Ukraine is fighting smarter. They're using the drones. I think the robotics will make a big difference. They're already like some robots. Russia's not stupid either. They're adapting all of that. This is all built with consumer electronics, so they can send some. And they're wondering how all this stuff gets into Russia. They just go to Dubai, go to a shopping mall there, and just buy up all the iPhones and bring them back to Russia, and you can take out all the electronics. Or whatever electronics. You could buy dishwashers, or just even go to the parts store, where the repairmen go and just grab all that stuff. And, any electrical engineering student can reprogram this stuff. There's a lot of, griping about like, oh, they're getting all this Western parts, but there's like big openings. There's big holes in these sanctions, like the size of a train tunnel. Like Dubai, Singapore. A lot of this stuff is not regulated. This is all just like the same quality electronics they put in toys, and stuff like this. And there's companies in India even making these like low-grade electronics, but they're good enough to make Shaheds and good enough to make a lot of the things that the Russians are using. So then Ukraine has to come up with like interceptor technologies, which they're doing. It's quite impressive actually. But like I talked about in the video, none of this stuff is like patentable or profitable from a business perspective. Like they're quote unquote looking for investment into this, but there's really no return. Other than you're saving a country. But for Wall Street people, that's not enough. So they have to still do this at a strategic level, getting government funding and get this stuff going. And maybe they can sell some of these drones. They can mass produce them enough here and sell them to the neighboring countries like Poland, who had a few incursions and everything, and get some funds flowing in. But they definitely have to come up with an economic model here other than selling agricultural goods. They've got to go up the value chain here in Ukraine. And, they're selling IT services, but I think that's already maxed out. I don't think there's much more they can expand on that. Every smart guy in the country is either in the army or working in IT, or self-employed as an entrepreneur, able to exploit some gap in the system to their advantage. So that's all like maxed out. So they've got to come up with some manufactured goods, some finished goods, and send that abroad and get revenue coming in. They've got to definitely come up with some revenue streams here, outside of IT and farming. It's those are the two. And IT really in perspective is not that big compared to like farming and the industrial stuff. It gets a lot of spotlight, but it's like India. The IT offshoring in India is just a small percent. India mostly makes its money selling like, t-shirts and, agriculture. I think they sell some, minerals or whatever, but most of it is like, most countries it's agriculture. Even the US, I think the big portion of the economy is agriculture still. But that's so I will tell you more about our adventure to America. I'll start that, I guess the next video I'll make is from Poland, from Warsaw, and and say Yeah, goodbye to Ukraine. I hope it's not a forever thing. I hope we don't get stuck there. But, you know, life in America is like that. You know, you get into your routine. It's comfortable, you know. Once you get used to the driving, it becomes second nature. You don't even think you're doing it. You don't mind gaining an extra 20 pounds. Everyone else around you is fat, you know, so you just fit right in, you know, and time passes, you know. Time one day goes to the next day, and it's hard to uplift and move, and you start getting tied up with stuff. And the real estate thing is a real big debate for me, because, like, you know, buying a house, it's a very good investment, right? But then it ties you up too. It makes it very hard to move and have that freedom, you know. And then, like I said, you get sucked into some routine, into some do-loop corporate job, you know, and all, you know, the money is more, but all the expenses are higher, and all the, you know, just like I say, you have to keep focused. We have to go there with some goals, you know, and we have to really decide if we need to go back there for a kid's education or not. You know, that can we get it done here? Because there's a lot of smart kids here, obviously. I mean, if they weren't, the Russians would have already taken Ukraine, because Ukraine is winning this war on the brains, you know, because they're outnumbered like 10 to 1. So they have to use their brains to figure things out, you know, because they don't have the brute force. So although they could use their brains a bit more, you know, I mean, they put everything on Instagram. When they do something really cool, they have to publicize it. I shouldn't know about it. Nobody needs to know about this stuff. You know, the White House can get it in a classified briefing, and, you know, whoever in Kiev needs to know about it can know about it in a classified way, but they don't need to post it on Instagram. But yeah, that's just a little gripe I have. So yeah, how not to get stuck. Have a goal, have a plan, go there, get your things done, you know, get yourself set up so you have like a U.S. presence, U.S. address, you know, so you can keep getting remote contracts, remote work, and then come back here and, you know, not have to worry about driving a car, you know, and being able to walk everywhere, and just have a lot of extra time every day, you know, and invest that into fitness, you know, invest that into building up your knowledge, you know, instead of having your eyes glued on a road and then you're knackered and then you just watch Netflix. It's just like a downward spiral with the cars over there. But anyway, that's all I got. Thank you. Bye-bye.